So in the previous class, what we did is that given one SLPP and one BFS to start with, that is, if we are at one vertex, then we saw that okay, we can evaluate the relative cost C bar, and then either we conclude it is the minimal BFS, assuming our problem was minimized. So, or we could conclude it is like not bounded below, so that a minimum cannot be found, or we could find a direction to go to a new vertex, that is a new BFS. And then we again apply the same thing, same process. So that is the simplex algorithm. So simplex algorithm actually you can implement provided you have an initial BFS. Now the question is how to find an initial BFS if it is not readily visible. We are not just talking about 2 equation, 3 variable, something like that. You can have maybe 50 equations and 60 variables. So it turns out that the same simplex method algorithm can be implemented to find an initial BFS. Towards that, you would require this theorem of finding an initial BFS. This is a related theorem. So what it says here, as usual, the rank of A is equal to M, and B is the constant B is greater than equal to 0. This is where till now we have been, if you remember initially when I was saying we convert LPP to SLPP, I insisted that we keep B greater than equal to 0. We have not used that till now, but now, for example, I mean, we of course have used very in a subtle way that when we are trying to find out BI divided by AIR, okay, that ratios, those kind of things. But here it is explicitly used. Okay, so suppose that you have, so what you have now, you have system. So somebody gave you something like minimize C transpose X subject to Ax equal to B, X greater than equal to 0. Okay, here it is assumed that B is greater than equal to 0. That is, B is given greater than equal to 0. Somebody asked you. Now you are ready with simplex algorithm. The only thing that you need one initial BFS. Once you have an initial BFS, you can apply the simplex algorithm. Now the question is how to find the initial BFS. So then the idea is what you have to do, you consider this related problem. What is this? Now this is, you write, introduce some artificial variables this is X, this is Y, and you try to minimize how many Y's that if A is M by N, then identity is M by M. Okay, so how many Y's? Now there are M many, so you minimize 1 transpose Y. This is nothing but Y1 plus Y2 plus, you try to minimize this one. Suppose I want to minimize this problem. Forget this original problem. Now you look at this related problem. I am looking at this related problem. Minimize Y1, Y2 up to Ym, where x is greater than equal to 0, y is greater than equal to 0. This is equal to b. Okay. So this set you can call T, and this set you can call T star or something like that. Okay. Now my first observation whether this set T star is non-empty. The answer is yes, it is non-empty. Why? Now I can take x to be 0 and y equal to b itself. Okay. X 0, y equal to b. This one belongs to T star. You substitute x equal to 0, y equal to b, you will get b only. And since b is greater than equal to 0, it will satisfy x greater than equal to 0, y greater than equal to 0. Okay, so this set is non-empty. T star is non-empty. Okay. Fine. So if T star is non-empty, then what? Now look, what you are minimizing is y1 plus y2 plus y3 plus ym. That function is bounded below because this is always greater than equal to 0. y1 plus y2 plus y3 plus ym greater than equal to 0. So I have a non-empty polyhedron on which the objective function is bounded below. So FTLP will tell you that a minimum of this one exists. So this will tell objective function one transpose y is bounded below, and so by FTLP minimum exists. So minimum is attained. Now again, if a minimum is attained, it is attained at a vertex. So in any case, I don't care about that. As soon as I know minimum exists, okay, I am happy. Only thing is that I can apply in order to apply simplex method, I need an initial BFS. Well, my initial BFS is corresponding to this solution only. This itself is a BFS. Corresponding to which basis? Now the basis is y1, y2, ym. See, y1, y2, ym, the corresponding rows of the matrix are nothing but rows of the identity matrix, and so they are linearly independent, and the rest of them are 0. So they are the non-basic part. So this is a BFS. Fine, no problem. This is a BFS corresponding to basis y1, y2, ym. Okay, so for this related problem, I have found a BFS. Okay, so then what can I do? Now I can easily apply a simplex method. So when I apply simplex method, what will happen? Now the method will stop at a minimum solution, a minimal vertex. Okay, so suppose that, so now apply simplex method. When I apply simplex method, suppose I get something like x0, y0. This is the final place where simplex method stops. What am I talking? Why should the simplex method stop here? Now look, the simplex method, what does it do? Once you stand at a BFS, that is a vertex, what it does? It computes C bar and either concludes it is minimum or concludes the function is not bounded below. But that cannot be concluded for this function. This function is bounded below. So it will either say right now this BFS is minimum, or it will give you a better BFS. And there are finitely many BFS, so it is bound to give you a minimum BFS, a minimal BFS. So this is the minimal. I should not say vertex, let's say BFS. Okay. So that part is guaranteed. For the related problem has a minimum, and if I apply simplex method, it will stop at a minimal BFS. Now there are two possibilities. The value of the objective function. Okay. So the value of the objective function, that is 1 transpose y, that is either positive or 0. What happens if the minimal value that I get, it is positive? Now if I get that the minimal value is positive, okay, in the case that is positive, then I conclude that this set T is empty. Now how? Now look, if T was non-empty, suppose T has some point P, okay, this is argument, huh? T is here, T is the feasible set for the original problem. If P belongs to T, then of course P0 belongs to T star and of value 0, right? Then how come simplex method gave you value greater than 0, value positive? Now simplex method gave value positive implies T is non-empty, because if T is empty, because if T is non-empty, then simplex method should have given me value equal to 0. Okay. Now what happens if I have value? So suppose that the minimal BFS is x0 y0 that I have written, and suppose that the value is 0. What does that mean? Now if value is 0, what is value? Now value is y1 plus y2 plus y3 plus ym, that is equal to 0, and this y is greater than equal to 0. That would imply that y0 part itself is 0. Okay. And remember, it was a minimal BFS. BFS means what? Now the columns corresponding to positive entries are linearly independent, but then we realized that there are no positive entries over here, over y0 part. So only positive entries that you are seeing are in the x0 part. For that, the corresponding columns will be coming from A only, this part A, the part A. So then that would basically mean x0 is a BFS of Ax equal to B. Why? Now look, if I have x0 and 0 and I multiply over here, then I see A times x0 plus I times y0, y0 is 0. So it automatically says that A times x0 is equal to B. Okay. A times x0 is equal to B. Further, the columns corresponding to the positive entries in x0 are linearly independent. So it automatically says that you have got a BFS for Ax equal to B. So that is how you are going to get a BFS for X equal to B. So what do you do? To find an initial BFS, you first write down the related problem as I had written. So minimize Y transpose Y is subject to AI XY equal to B. Okay. Achha, these extra variables that you just introduced in the related problem are called, they have their names, their name are called artificial variables. Okay. Now apply simplex method to find the minimum value alpha of the objective function. If alpha is greater than 0, conclude that T is empty. If alpha equal to 0, then conclude that X naught is a BFS for Ax equal to B. That is what we just proved. Okay. So here, as you will, I will show by while doing the example. See, once one artificial variable goes out, you may simply, while doing the calculation, you may simply drop that column because, like, from the beginning itself, you could have introduced only only a few artificial variables and not the one that are going out. You could have done that. I will explain this point while doing this example. So suppose that I am looking at this problem. What is that? Now here the problem table is something like this. X1, X2, X3, X4, B, and I have 2, -1, 3, -2, 3, and -1, 3, -4, 4, 1. What is that I want to minimize? I want to minimize 2, 2, 4, 2. Okay, this is my problem table. I do not know what. Now assume that you can still, because we are human beings and this matrix size is small. So, number of equations and variable are not that big. We can see and we can guess what are we can find an initial BFS, but imagine that the computer is trying to do and doesn't know. Okay, so then the process says, so you do the related problem. What is the related problem? And the related problem will be this one: X1, X2, X3, X4, and there are two equations. M is 2, so we will introduce two artificial variables, y1, y2, and B. I will write the same thing: 2, -1, 3, -2, 1, 0, -1, 3, -4, 4, 0, 1. Here it is 3, 1, the same thing. And here you try to minimize 1, 1, y1 plus y2. This is what you are trying to minimize. Okay. Okay, trying to minimize this one. Now what is the initial BFS? Now this one will do by simplex method. If you want to do by simplex method, what is the initial BFS? Now the initial BFS that is readily available over here is y1, y2. That is the initial BFS. Okay, so form the simplex table at this. Now if I want to form the simplex table at this, look, the column below the first basic variable is already 1 0. Column below the second one is 0 1. So that part I do not have to do anything. I only need to change the entries of C below the basic variable. So that has to be made 0. So for that I will have to take row 1 plus row 2 and subtract it from C. So that will be 0 0. This will be minus 2. Row 1 plus row 2, so that will be minus 2. This one will be 1. This one will be minus 2. This one will be minus 1. Okay, and similarly here it will be minus 4. So if you are trying to do the simplex table, so the simplex table will be this only. Okay, if you do not do, just delete this part. Okay, if you delete this part, what remains is the simplex table. Okay, so what will be the next table? Now depends on you which one you want to which negative and which entering variable you want to take. Now suppose I want to take this as the entering variable, this one as the entering variable. Well, if I want to take this one as the entering variable, then this one is my pivot. Okay, so the next table would be like basic variable x1, x2, x3. So what is coming in? Coming in is x1, and what is going out? Going out is y1. Okay. So right now what I have understood that x1, y2 forms a basis. Okay. The moment I have understood that x1, y2 forms a basis, then I imagine the situation. Suppose I had this information from the very beginning. Okay, then I would not have introduced y1. What is the point of introducing y1? So in that case, my table would have been like this: x1, y2, and then I will write the pivot element has to be made to 1. So I will make it 1 minus half 3 by 2 minus 1. y1 I have deleted because y1 does not exist any further. 0 b bar part, here you write b bar also. B bar part is 3 by 2. And then the next entry has to be like in the column of x1, it has to be made 0. So how do I get? Now half of first row added to the second row. So that will be 0. This is 5 by 2. And then this is minus 5 by 2. Okay. And this is 3. That is fine. Y1 part is not there. Y2 is 1. And then this is 5 by 2. Okay, no problem. And the C bar entry has to be made 0 also. So that will be 0. Okay. And then this one minus 3 by 2. No, minus 5 by 2. Minus 5 by 2. And then half of that would be 1.5. So that is 5 by 2. And then half of that, this will be minus 3. This will be, yeah, minus 3. And then 0. And then half of that added, minus 5 by 2. Right. This is the next table. So in the next table, you still have some negative entries, whichever you do. You can select X2 to come in. So you have, this is your pivotal entry. So again, you will have BV. So here what is happening? Now Y2 is going out. So BV, X1, X2, X3, X4. There is no need to write Y2 any further. B bar, you have X1, X2, because from the previous table, what I understood that X2 is coming in and Y2 is going out. That means in the problem, I understood that X1, X2 is a basis. If somebody had given me this information, then I would not have written the related problem at all. I could have directly started writing the simplex table, taking the basis X1, X2 itself for the original problem. Okay. In any case, so let us do that. What has happened? Now, so here writing the second row, because that has to be made to 1. So it is 0, 1, -1, and then this is 6 by 5, and then this is 1. And what happens now? The top entry has to be 0. So 1, 0. Then this one is 3 by 2. I will so this divided by 5. So I will be having 1, and then -2 by 5. This one divided by 5 added here. This one divided by 5 added here. This one divided by 5. So 3 by 5. So -2 by 5. And then this one divided by 5 half added here. That becomes 2. Fine. No problem. And I have to make this entry 0, so that you directly add this. So this is 0, this is 0, this is 0, this one is 0, and this one is 0. Okay, so what I have got now, I have got all the C bar entries greater than equal to 0, and the value is equal to 0. The value is equal to 0. Since I have got the value equal to 0, so I understand that x1, x2 is actually the basis for my original problem. So all I have to do now, I have to compute the C bar here. What was the C there? Now in the problem table, this was C. So I will write, I don't have to write here. I understand that this was actually 2, 2, 4, 2. That was the thing. Okay. So I understand that, but that was my C. So I have to convert that to C bar. In order to convert that to C bar, what I am supposed to do, now I am supposed to make the entries below x1 and x2, because x1, x2 are basic variables. I have to make them 0. So that you will do by taking 2 times of row 1 and 2 times of row 2, subtract it from here. So if you do that, what you will get is something like this. BB, this you remember, okay? Rather, instead of writing it here, x2, x3, x4, B bar, x1, x2. You don't have to do, it is already in the 1001 format. You don't have to do anything for the matrix part. -1, 6 by 5, 1. You only have to make the relative cost entries 0. So I understand that was, what was that? And that was 2242. Okay, this I will take away anyway. I will take away. Okay, I just need to see that. So I have to make this 0. So that will be 0, 2 times this, 2 times this. So the sum of these two and then times 2 subtracted. So that is 4. Sum of these two is 4 by 5, 4 by 5 doubled 8 by 5, 2 minus 8 by 5. So that will be 3 by 5. And then sum of these two doubled. So and subtracted. So that will give me minus 6. Okay. So this is the one. I will like just here what I see now for my original problem, C bar is greater than equal to 0 and the value is minus 6. So I conclude that. So applying simplex method. So minimum is 6.
Sir, it is 2 by 5, no, sir, not 3 by 5.
Which one?
2 times 2 minus of 8 by 5.
2 by 5, 2 by 5. Correct. 2 by 5. Correct. So I conclude that the minimum is 6 and attend at x1 equal to 2, x2 equal to 1, x3 equal to 0, x4 equal to 0. Okay, so what I was trying to tell, see, look how I reduced our computation by throwing away the columns of the outgoing artificial variables because they are no longer required. Okay, and here this was a typical example, so that like after getting the initial BFS, it just ended in one step, but sometimes it can go many steps. Even the names of these two parts, finding the initial BFS, is popularly called phase 1 of the simplex method. So the whole simplex method includes finding the initial BFS. So that part is called phase 1. And then after finding the initial BFS, now you do the minimization for the original problem, that is called phase 2. These are some old names, traditional names. Okay, so phase 1 is this, phase 2 is this. If you are reading some textbooks, you will see they would have written phase 1, phase 2. Okay. Yeah, so here like I have taken some other this thing. Fine. So that is how you have got. Okay. So this you have already, I must have remarked also. If I am trying to minimize, then I look for a negative entry in C bar and get the direction. If I am trying to maximize, I look for a positive entry in C bar. Okay. What is this? I have written it. So I have written it in a different way. So for a maximization problem, this is only for maximization. The optimal condition is C bar less than equal to 0. So you will look for a positive entries and then try to get the, a better direction. Okay, this is one example where you can try yourself the phase 1 and phase 2. So that I am not going to explain. It is a little bit different example to tell you what happens if really, the rank of the input matrix is not equal to the row rank. Not equal to the number of rows. Number of rows is m. So if the rank is a little less, what happens? And suppose you just started to apply the simplex method, then what would happen? So that is what it says. Nothing would happen. You will still find a way out. Okay. So if the matrix A m by n is given, one standard procedure is like you first check the rank, and then if the rank is lesser than m, throw out the extra unnecessarily. So if you have x equal to b and the rank is less than m and this system is consistent, throw out the unnecessary superfluous equations first, so that you get it into actually rank is equal to number of rows, and then go for simplex method. Otherwise, if you are going this way, you will still, because ultimately what are you doing now? You are doing elementary row operations only. So you will convert the matrix into many zero rows. Some zero rows will be there. As soon as you see those zero rows, neglect them and then proceed. That's how it is. You will realize actually both are the same. So now there is an interesting question. The question is the following. So suppose that here, let me draw something and ask something. Suppose that I am standing at this vertex, okay, W, and then I applied the simplex method, and it suppose gave me a direction to move. As I see, it can give me this direction to move, and in that direction, if I go, I get a vertex, okay, new vertex, or I can go in this direction. And the question is whether it can also go in this direction. The answer is no. It never goes. It actually travels via edges only. Okay, so that part is like very easy to prove. It's a little bit geometrical and easy to prove. See, suppose that I have taken a direction. So this is here. Suppose that I have, this is W plus theta D. You see, this is W plus theta D. Okay, so D has this form. Like somewhere it will be 1. So this was the basic part. This was the non-basic part in W. Okay, fine. Then how do I get D? Now to get D, one of the non-basic variables I make 1, and the rest I keep 0. Okay, and then I determine what will be the other values. They turn out to be that column, whatever those columns, and I put with a negative entry, whatever it is, but that is the thing. Okay, now suppose that, so now you are not seeing this picture. Do not look at the picture, but look at this picture here. So I am at W and I have found a direction D, and I can go, let's say I can go up to this place. No problem. I can go up to this place. But I am asking at any point of W plus theta D, can I move a little bit? Can I find a direction, some other direction X, so that I can move epsilon and minus epsilon in this direction? I mean, both epsilon and minus epsilon. So basically, I am asking whether there exists a vector X which is linearly independent of D. So it is not proportional to D, so that I don't want to travel on this line, but I want to travel in some other linearly independent direction. Okay, and in a way that I want to travel a little bit more, so that this W plus theta D plus minus epsilon X, that both are in the feasible set. Is it going to happen? Now, if that is going to happen, you understand what we actually had. We actually had, in order, like, you would require A plus AW is already a point, so AW equal to B. Let me tell it in that way. W plus theta D is also a point of T, so that basically says AD equal to 0. And assume that W plus theta D plus this epsilon plus minus epsilon x is also in t, that they both are in t, so that would also say ax equal to 0, right? So I am looking at this a. Okay. Now the other thing that you see, x is a vector like what? Now x will be also the same dimension vector. Huh. X will also have the same dimension as vector. But what I am saying, suppose this is x. Can this entry be, let's say, 0.5? This particular entry? No, it cannot be. See, look, w plus theta d has that particular entry 0. If you give this 0.5, then minus epsilon x will have in totality w plus theta d minus epsilon x will have a negative entry there. That does not belong to t. Okay, so then it forces me to have x equal to 0, x equal to 0. So wherever all these parts, x will must have 0. All these parts, x must have 0. Okay, so then what I am seeing now, I am seeing in that case, you take write a like this. Take this part. How many columns? Now the first column, second column, m column, and then xm plus 1 column. So this part you call B. So this is your A. Huh? Not really B, you can call it a tilde or something. Okay. This part is whatever, you don't care. And then xm plus 1 included, huh? Included there, that side. And this is the second part. And when you multiplied it with x, you got 0, right? x1 to xm plus 1. Rest entries are 0, I understand. So therefore it tells me that this a tilde multiplied by x is equal to 0. Right? A tilde means this part. Multiplied by not x, rather I should say x tilde or something. Okay. That is equal to 0. Okay. And what now you also have a tilde multiplied by that d tilde, the same truncation I have done for d, that is equal to 0. And that should say that a tilde multiplied by d tilde minus x tilde equal to 0. Okay, fine. What is the number of columns of a tilde? The number of columns of a tilde is m plus 1. Okay, rank of a tilde is m. So nullity of a tilde means dimension 1. Null space will have dimension 1. Well, if null space will have dimension 1 and both x tilde and d tilde belong to the null space, okay, you forget this part, that is not required. If null space has dimension 1, null space of a tilde has dimension 1, both d tilde and x tilde belong to that, then it is going to be, I mean, they are going to be linearly dependent. I mean, either, I mean, one will be a scalar multiple of the other. So that will be a contradiction. Okay. So therefore, can you get something x that is linearly independent, which is not scalar multiple of d? The answer is no, you will not. So that basically means for whatever points you are traveling over here, that's the edge. That's basically the edge. Okay. Yeah. So that is what it is. This is one example where you will see many examples like this, where you see how you actually you are traveling via edges and via edges, but you already have seen those examples many of them. Okay, you can go further maybe in this example. I will tell a little more about the duality. You remember that primal problem? Primal problem is minimize C transpose X subject to X greater than equal to B, X greater than equal to 0, and the dual problem was maximize Y transpose B subject to Y transpose A less than equal to C transpose and Y greater than equal to 0. Okay. And what was the primal dual theorem? And the primal dual theorem said, if primal has a minimum, then dual has a maximum. Furthermore, both the values are the same. That's what it says. Okay. And also it says that, a part of it says that the objective value at every primal point is greater than equal to the objective value at every dual point. If you have, so that's what it says. That part is the same proof. Like I will try to give a new proof of this one via simplex method. Why? Why isn't one proof enough for me? Why am I trying to give? No. This one is via simplex method, and this one gives a way to get the dual maximal solution. Okay, so suppose a primal problem is given. Somebody asks you, okay, apply simplex method on the primal problem, get the minimum solution. Fine. And then it asks, what is the dual maximal solution? Tell me what is the dual maximal solution without applying simplex method on the dual problem. Okay. So this type of question used to come in the earlier days. Nowadays, whatever objective question they ask, you can do anything. But it is better you understand what is the relationship. Okay. So suppose that the primal has a minimum solution. Suppose that the primal problem has a minimum solution x naught. So primal minimum is like some x naught, let's say. Okay, so primal has a minimum solution, but the primal problem is given in this form, na? Minimize C transpose X subject to Ax greater than equal to B and X greater than equal to 0. So there I cannot do any simplex method. In order to apply simplex method, I have to write it in the SLPP format. So let me write it in the SLPP format. So I have minimize extended C bar transpose. So I can write C tilde transpose XY. C tilde is C transpose 0 transpose. Huh? Identity A minus I X Y equal to B, and then XY greater than equal to 0. So this is SLPP format. Okay, fine. Acha, so you somebody has told us that this has a minimum. Okay, well, if this has a minimum, okay, then according to simplex this thing, I will get a, there will exist a minimal, because what do I know? Now this is a problem. Okay, this is a SLPP, this is one problem. But the FTLP says if the minimum exists at a vertex. Well, if the minimum exists at a vertex, that means there is a minimal BFS. Okay, so let me instead of writing this one, let me say, so let by simplex method the minimum be at the minimum BFS. I will say B, let me write x naught, y naught. Okay, this is minimum BFS. Minimum exists, so minimum will be attained at a BFS, so that is fine. and simplex method would find it. Because the minimum exists, simplex method at any stage will not say that the function is unbounded below. It will never say that. So it is going to terminate. Okay, so going to give me the minimum BFS. Okay, so this is what has happened. Okay, I can call this as like W or something. No problem. X naught, Y naught. Okay, the minimum exists. But according to the simplex methods, the method stops provided the relative cost, computed relative cost is greater than equal to 0. So it must have computed the relative cost. So what is the relative cost? Now the relative cost would be that C tilde transpose minus, remember what is C tilde? Now this C tilde is C transpose 0 transpose, this one, minus C tilde B. Acha, suppose the basis matrix is B basis matrix. With respect to that basis, whatever it is, C tilde B transpose B inverse A tilde. By A tilde is what? Now this is actually equal to C transpose 0 transpose minus whatever C tilde B, I do not know what is that, B inverse A minus I, A tilde is that, and that is greater than equal to 0. That is the relative cost factor. Okay, so what does it say? It has two parts. One part it is C transpose, the first coordinate, C tilde B transpose B inverse A, that is greater than equal to 0, plus 0 transpose minus this, so that means CB tilde transpose B inverse is greater than equal to 0. Now this you call Z naught. Call this Z naught. What you have got? Now I have got a Z naught, a vector, which is greater than equal to 0. Okay, fine. So what? No. You look at the first one. This Z naught satisfies what? Now Z naught transpose A is less than equal to C transpose from the first equation. Z naught transpose A is less than equal to C transpose. So what? Now in that case, Z naught belongs to TD. Here. Satisfies that. Okay, so you have found a point in the dual set, and this is actually the dual maximum. If I can show that the primal minimum value, that is C tilde transpose W, is equal to this Z naught transpose B, then I am done. Okay, in view of this one, in view that the primal feasible value is always greater than equal to the dual feasible value. So wherever they are equal, this must be minimum, that must be maximum. Okay, so this is what we will show. That part is also easy to show. What you want to show? Now I want to show C transpose 0 transpose this W X naught Y naught W, that value is actually equal to what is that I want to show? I want to show Z naught transpose B. That is what I want to show. Okay, in any case, so let me write it here. This is C tilde transpose W. Okay, so that is equal to C tilde transpose B and WB, because W in the non-basic part is 0 anyway. Okay. And what is WB? Now WB I already know, C tilde B part. So this C tilde transpose W is equal to C tilde transpose the B part plus the C part, but then WC is equal to 0. Okay. And that is on the non-basic part W is 0. And WB is nothing but B inverse B. Okay. And so this is equal to and this is the Z transpose only, na? Here. Oh, sorry, I should put a transpose here. So this is the Z transpose only. So this is Z transpose B only. Z not transpose B. Okay, WB is B inverse B only. So that is why. So they are equal, and therefore, so in this I have so I mean that then the proof is over. The equality, this part is very trivial. I mean the same proof as I had done earlier also. The part that every primal feasible value is greater than equal to the dual feasible value. This part is easier, and somewhere I must have said, okay, here. This is the Z, huh? I have said, so I should emphasize, this is how you get the dual maximal solution without applying simplex method on the dual listing. So basically what is that? Now in order to get that dual maximal solution, all you have to do, you have to find that C tilde B, what is the basis for the final capital B is the basis matrix for the minimal BFS in the simplex method, that is the final simplex table. What is the basis? And the corresponding part of the C bar, C tilde bar transpose, whatever it is, they're like this. This is how CB tilde transpose B inverse. That is your dual maximal. And if you do not believe, you apply simplex method on the dual problem, and you will get this also. Okay. So yeah. A corollary, if dual has a maximum value, then primal has a minimum value. This I have already done, but you can again do that. This is a repeat. Okay, this is just a repeat. So there are few facts, simple facts. For example, A. Suppose that the primal objective function is unbounded below. Unbounded below. Okay. Can the dual feasible set be non-empty? The answer is no, because the moment you have, see, if you have primal problem and if you have dual problem, at any point, if the dual feasible set is non-empty, then Y transpose B is a lower bound for any C transpose X, for all C transpose X, whatever you have there, this one is bounded below. So if you are seeing the primal objective function is unbounded below, then this set must have been empty. The dual feasible set must have been empty. In a similar way, if the dual objective function is unbounded above, the primal feasible set must be empty. And therefore, you come to the next conclusion. The primal has a minimum if and only if dual has a maximum, and that is if and only if both these sets are non-empty. Okay, because if suppose you are looking at primal dual and you want to work on primal, and somebody has already given you that the dual problem has a non-empty feasible set, that means you already know that the primal feasible function is bounded below. Okay, and since the primal feasible function is bounded below and primal feasible set is already non-empty, that is also is given. So therefore by FTLP the minimum will be attained and will be attained at a vertex, therefore simplex method will work. Okay, so these three are equivalent. This is actually many people call the fundamental, I mean they call it one of the very fundamental, very English word, fundamental results. Okay, one of the very fundamental results. Primal has a minimum, equivalent to dual has a maximum, equivalent to both the sets, primal and dual, are non-empty. Okay. Here is something that I wanted to say. This is a small trick you can perform. See, if the primal has 2 rows, just 2 rows, but many variables, well, maybe some 8 variables. Okay, but just two rows. Then convert it to dual. Okay, the dual will be a problem on R2 only. It will have only 2 variables. Then you can easily solve it by graphical method and you can see the solution immediately. That will be very quick without even performing the simplex method. So you can quickly get it. Okay. Yeah, so this one is the B part I have already said, dual of an LPP given in another forms. You can write it by converting it. Okay. Yeah. Any questions that you want to ask? Otherwise, we stop here.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, in between you said something regarding while solving the simplex method that if the row becomes 0, then we can neglect something. I didn't understand that properly.
Oh, that one was some remark about that example. Okay, once you try to do that example, I have explained it there itself. So that was one example, self, where I said this one. Actually, what happens, suppose that I have given you a matrix, say let's say 3 by 5 matrix to do, but the rank is actually not 3, rank is 2. And suppose you believed me that the rank is 3 and you started searching for the initial BFS by following the method, then what will happen that ultimately you come to a stage like this here, that one particular row will be actually 0 0 0 0 0 0, everything is 0, only that y1, that extra artificial variable that you have included, that will remain, otherwise it is 0. See these extra zeros that you are seeing, these zeros that you are seeing here, see, why have they occurred? What have you done? Now I have only done row operations only. So that row has somehow have been converted to 0. Well, that can happen only if the original matrix has some dependent row. There was a row which was a linear combination of the others. So basically, do not even consider that part. Essentially, had somebody told you, okay, there is a dependent row, you would have thrown it out. That equation you would have thrown out and started. So throw it out now and start. That
yes,
is what
I got it now. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, and one more thing, sir. Why we should take plus or minus epsilon x? Why not just plus epsilon x? I didn't get that.
No. See, imagine a some 3-dimensional polyhedron kind of a thing, solid. If you are trying to travel one on an edge, what is the property? Now on that edge, you can go in one direction, you can stay in the set. But if you go in the other direction, you will get out of the set. The edge has a property that if you that has only 1 degree of freedom. Like on that edge you can travel, but at any point on that edge, if you try to travel in any other direction, you can travel in only one direction, not the backside direction. Like a tetrahedron. If you try to imagine a tetrahedron, suppose you take a point on an edge. So if you take a direction that is not proportional to the edge but something else, one direction may take you inside the set, but the other direction will take you out. So if you are finding a direction in which you can go backward and forward and you are still inside the set, then that point is definitely not an edge, not on an edge. edges are actually defined like that. Another way of seeing it, see, we had this last few variables equal to 0. So they satisfied the hyperplane. Apart from that non-basic variable which was made 1, all the other rows will give you hyperplanes, supporting hyperplanes. Actually, both of them, both the new vertex and the old vertex, there will be n-1 supporting hyperplanes passing through them. And if there are n-1 supporting hyperplanes containing both the vertices, then it would, like, the connection will only be one edge, because yeah, that is what I wanted to say.
Yes, sir. I got the graphical method properly. Thank you, sir.
Uh-huh. Okay, then we stop.